I always wanted to be a Marine. My dad was a Marine, and my grandpa was a Marine. So I enlisted right after high school. I had my mom sign for me. I was only 17 years old.
I said, oh, it's all great. Just as long as he doesn't have to be in a war, I'm good with it. And next thing I know.
I did 2 deployments. The first one was right after September 11th, and then the second one was the invasion of Iraq. When we got back, we had 4 days until we were able to fly home from Camp Pendleton. And on the 3rd night, a friend of mine fell asleep at the wheel. We rolled about a dozen times down a hill. I broke my C4, 5, 6, and 7 in my neck, which left me paralyzed basically from the neck down. It was a pretty big hit. Seeing myself in a mirror sitting 90 degrees the way I am now was a really hard pill to swallow. I felt like everything had been taken away from me. My job had been taken away, my brothers were no longer around, my physical being was no longer the same. I had nothing left.
It was a dark time. He was this strong Marine who just fought a war, and now he's needing his mom to do very basic things.
When you're first injured, it's hard to not focus on all the things that you can't do, and it takes a long time to start realizing all the things that you still can do. After about 6 years of being in this spot that I was in, a friend of mine drugged me to an adaptive sporting event. He took me skiing in Aspen. I thought to myself, quadriplegics aren't meant to go skiing. I was like, I'm gonna end up breaking everything, that I have left. But getting out of your comfort zone is really the key to anything. That's when you feel alive. I felt that I got a piece of me back that had been missing. It was only a matter of months before I was skydiving. I started competing in other events, and I would ask everybody if I would see him again at another event, but there was a barrier of entry, which was money, especially for the guys that have to bring a caregiver. You have flights, you have hotels, you have equipment. These things are not cheap, but they're the key to recovery. So I said, what if we sold T-shirts? We could start a nonprofit or something. During the invasion of Iraq, the UN was using a term, OscarMike. When you needed somebody to get on the move or a unit to start moving, you would say, I need you to get OscarMike. And you didn't hesitate, you started moving. So 4 guys in wheelchairs started building shelves in my 2-car garage, and we started stocking our first shirts. And now we have the OscarMike Foundation and OscarMike Apparel. The OscarMike Foundation exists to keep injured veterans on the move through adaptive sports. We've had over 400 veterans from all over the country go through our programs so far, and we've offered over 1,000 sporting scholarships. Veterans come to the compound for the week, and we do everything from wheelchair rugby to flying airplanes to off-roading. The apparel company is really to minimize overhead for the foundation. If we can absorb as much of that as possible, then every dollar that's donated to the foundation can go a lot further. We had to create a website, so we sat behind a computer for a very long time and eventually figured it out. If somebody were to search how to support veterans or veteran T-shirts, those are all the things that we're trying to come up at the top of the page on, and Google Ads is really helping. We've done double the traffic and revenue year after year. After your accident or after leaving the military, a lot of people struggle with finding purpose. And adaptive sports does give you purpose. You're around a bunch of people that have chewed the same dirt as you. Nobody else is gonna understand what it's like being a quadriplegic, a paraplegic, an amputee.
Come on.
And then also being a veteran.
It isn't just the sports. It's the camaraderie, it's the family. This saved Noah. This saved his life. So it's not a stretch to say that it is saving other lives as well.
If you're in a wheelchair, your life stops where the pavement ends. And it isn't until you open your mind and you start trying new things that you realize it doesn't have to end there. There are no limits if you don't want there to be.
Welcome to Google. I'm Alex Dorko. I work here. And I'm here interviewing Noah Currier, who is the founder of OscarMike. You've just heard his story. Also a user of Grow with Google, so that's nice that we get the plug in there at the end. But just that's kind of the short and sweet version the last 20 years. So thank you so much for coming.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. This is kind of Google VetNet's Veterans Day event. Veterans Day is next Monday. I imagine Noah's busy with like veteran stuff. So anyway, like I feel like we're kind of coming into your story in the middle, right? I wanted to just kind of start at the beginning and talk about like how it is we got here, right? So I like to open it up with the question, what were you like as a kid? What kind of kid were you?
Well, I love being outside. I felt like I was an organizer of people who had interests similar to mine, which, and it kind of changed like probably from season to season because it was usually around sports. During the summer it was let's get around the baseball diamond, or make one somewhere. In the fall, it was the basketball court or football practice or, like throwing the ball around in the yard. But sports was always a big piece of my life. And then I also was, I guess, kind of entrepreneurial as a kid. I had a little lawn mowing service. I had a bike shop in my garage. I was always just working and playing sports. And I grew up in a small town in Illinois called Poplar Grove. I think that, like some of the things that I used to do or like to do as a kid outside, like hanging out in the water in the lake, or being dirty and working out, all kind of were like grooming me for, like what was going to eventually come next.
Yeah.
And my dad was a Marine, so
right.
I probably at a very young age, him and I probably both knew exactly what I was going to end up doing.
Interesting. So, okay, so your decision to join the Marines, was that like late in high school or?
Well,
like...
I mean, I probably knew in junior high that I wanted to do something like that. I mean, I had the picture of like the Force Recon guy up on my wall, as a kid, and I don't even know where I got that. Probably at the fair or something, and throwing a dart at a balloon. I'm not sure, but I kept it, and it was always up on my wall. And then I think when I was like running around the lake, our lake is about 5 miles around, and I would run around it all the time. And I think I first had tapes, and then eventually a CD and a Discman that I would listen to that was like the Marine Corps running cadences.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is.
So I was into it, man. I
guess.
I wanted it bad.
That's interesting. Okay, so you're 18 and, well, your mom, she signed for you were 17.
Yeah, I was 17.
So you were just...
She did not want to do that either.
And what year was that? It's like...
99.
Yeah.
And I remember she asked our recruiter, she said something to him. He's, just doing the dog and pony show. He's flipping through all the different jobs you can do.
Right.
My dad's sitting there yawning, and he's just like, just show him infantry or recon or something. That's all he wants to do. And then my mom said, I'll only sign for him if you can promise that he won't have to go to war. And the recruiter's like, ugh. It's like, well, it's 99. We haven't been there since 91. Like the odds are good right now.
What are the chances?
Yeah. And so I don't think he promised her that, but he gently slid around it.
That's good. Got a recruiter in the audience. You gotta be careful. I'm sure all the wars are done by now. The new ones. You join, and then how long were you in before you were first deployed?
Well, right after September 11th, 2001, we were on our first deployment. We didn't get to do a whole lot of, like what Marines do best, I guess, on that deployment because it was so new And I think our purpose was more in support of the initial phase of Operation Enduring Freedom. We joked around at the time, because it hadn't really kicked off yet. We called it Operation Enduring Boredom because we just sat on a ship for almost 8 months,
Right.
and just got to offload some stuff into Pakistan, and that was about it.
And then you went back in. You came home for.
Came home for, I don't even know how long it was, maybe 6 months or a year or something, and headed back over. Except this time, when we headed over, we landed in Kuwait. And, as we were floating over, we knew that there was a chance that we could go to Kuwait. And, we knew that there was a potential for, something in the Middle East and Iraq. But none of us thought it was serious. We would watch the news on the ship or listen to BBC or something on the way over, and it seemed like it was just a power move. Like we were there to show force and just say, you better comply with everything, or else we got a bunch of Marines about to get off this ship. And we got off the ship and sat there for probably a month or so, and then March 19th, 2003, the invasion started.
And you were one of the first units into Iraq.
Yeah. In the middle of the night, that night, I think we got the order and engineers blew the berm and we crossed through.
So tell me a little bit about your time deployed. It's so much has happened since then, but I find that like with a lot of veterans, if you deploy, you spend time in combat, regardless if it's 6 months or if it's many years, a lot of folks have had to kind of endure in the last couple of decades. It's kind of this seminal moment in your life and like a touchstone, something you go back to. So how do you, it's evolved now. If I'd asked you 10 years ago, it would have been a different answer. But like, how do you think about it now, and what was it like there, and what kind of Marine were you?
Today's version of myself is hard to picture that version of myself,
Yeah.
It really is. I see photos of myself back then, and then I think about the things that, we had to go through or do, and it's so much different than who I am today, that 18 to 22-year-old kid version of me. And I was a kid.
Yeah.
I didn't think so at the time, but now that I look back, I realize I was a child then.
It's important to remember how young you were.
Right.
It's, because it kind of helps frame those memories.
Right. Yes. And it is, it's just weird to think that, you thought you knew so much then, and I'm still really proud of everything that I did in my service and everything, but man, I realized how much I didn't know. And, but you grow up quick. Those 4 years, I learned a lot, and I don't even remember what the original question was, but
What kind of Marine were you?
What kind of Marine?
Yeah, like if we were making a movie.
So in the Marine Corps, we always say that there's two types of Marines. You got Field Marines and Garrison Marines. Let's just say I was not a Garrison Marine.
Okay. Yeah. We had Smart Range, Strong Rangers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might not have had the shiniest boots.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
But you were good in the field.
Yeah, and I enjoyed that stuff.
Right.
And I enjoyed field ops a lot more than I enjoyed polishing my boots.
Right.
I enjoyed doing what I considered my job more than I did making sure that my uniform was squared away. If I had the choice between chasing girls on the beach, and surfing and stuff, or making sure that my uniform looked right at night, I was probably not making sure my uniform looked right. So
you really didn't like your uniform. You keep bringing that up.
Yeah. I enjoy all the tradition about it and everything, but I much rather would be in the dirt, like crawling around and doing things that now I look back and I'm like, I don't know why I enjoyed that so much, but I did.
Mm-hmm. So we win the war, a couple of months. right? Lickety split.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. And then you come home,
Yep.
and a lot of people don't realize that when you come home from a deployment, they make you stay 3 days. It's the magic number. Because if you stay 3 days back at the base before you go home, I guess
Good to go.
then you're
back to normal.
You're reintegrated back to normal, 72 hours.
Yeah.
Too easy.
Yeah.
So in those 3 days, that was a rough 3 days.
Yeah, well, I mean, the 3 days were a lot of fun. We were heroes coming back then, you know.
Right.
We were the first unit to come back from Iraq.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think that was like a reward, you know. We were first ones to cross into, first ones to get to come home. And so we were the first people that, you know, that anybody back home got to ask stories about what was it like over there? What were you doing?
Right.
And, you know, I think it was definitely a different war than we had seen in the last decade or two or three. And I think it was exciting for people to be able to celebrate us in a sense and the accomplishment of the mission at the time. And
Things were still going well. I mean, how long had you been there?
not
Crossover
long,
in
a few
March
months.
19th.
Yeah,
Is it summer?
Yep. So deployment was only probably a little over 6 months, but we only spent a few of those months actually in country doing our job, I guess, the invasion phase of the war, from Kuwait, you know, crossing the border in Iraq all the way up to Tikrit, and a few weeks there, and turn around and start heading back down south and just work our way back down.
So you're home 3 days.
Yes, that's where we were.
Day 3.
Day 3. That night, I dropped my mom off at the airport. She was there with, you know, doing the parade thing, holding up the signs and all that.
Wow.
And I dropped her off at the airport, and I said, "I'll see you in the morning," or I fly out in the morning. So she flew out the night before me, and I was going to fly home to Illinois, you know, right afterwards. And I went back to the barracks, told her, she asked me what I was going to do that night. I said, "I'm just going to hook up my stereo, take some stuff out of my box, and crash out." And I did exactly that. And I fell asleep, and then a buddy of mine started waking me up over and over and over again, asking me to go down to San Diego with them, pick up some stuff, and come back to Camp Pendleton. And I said no the first 10 times. And then I said, if I drive down there, you're driving back. I was one of the only guys that had a truck. So, you know, it came in handy for stuff like that.
Dude,
So
that's why you don't get a truck.
I know. You should never have a truck because I know your friends want you to help them move.
Help you move.
Yeah. It's horrible. And they just consume so much gas.
Not the least of your problems.
So after that.
The accident.
Yeah.
So let's, you know, I just think it's important, you know, you experience warfare, that's trauma. You come back, and then the ultimate trauma.
Well,
You know,
close to.
close, I guess. And now you are paralyzed, essentially from the neck down. And your mom mentions it was a dark time, right? So like I wanted to make sure that I covered this because we could go straight to, and now you're running OscarMike. You're you know, you're helping people. You're at the vanguard of like the positive veteran experience, regardless of, you know, your circumstances. But you had to get there, right?
Yeah.
So
That took a long time.
talk a little bit about that.
Well, right after my accident in rehab, I lost somebody very close to me, big part of my life, and that was the ultimate right there. So it was the 3 things in a row, you know, it was the deployment, and then having to say goodbye to everybody that I loved, all my brothers and everybody, you know, they were all going back over, and I wasn't able to go with them, which is probably one of the hardest things to ever hear. And then being paralyzed from the neck down, and then losing her, and then and then going home to my hometown where I was the only guy, like that had any of them experiences of that invasion, being paralyzed, losing somebody so close to me. I shut off, and I started doing things that were not conducive to me lasting long on this earth.
Right.
And
you're contemplating suicide.
All the time. I mean, constantly. I mean, I slept with a rifle a lot, especially when I knew that nobody would find me or come into my room, and I would just basically just, I would say, I would try to make it, let's see. I had just done so many things over in Iraq that I thought were maybe unfair for people on the receiving end, for me to be doing or watch things happen to other people, where I just thought this should be easy. Right. But I was also living in my parents' house.
Right. And
the thought of my mom finding me in the morning every night, like that was, I think, the thing that always kept me from actually following through with it. And then without her even knowing, I would take it out on her. I was angry with her because if she wasn't around, I would be able to do this no problem. It was like I was blaming her without her even knowing that I was blaming her. So I would take it out on her, which wasn't fair. I look back at those times and just think, man, I wish that I would have been able to see things the way I do now. Which obviously hindsight is always 20/20, but that was a very rough time, and it lasted years.
Years.
Yeah.
And every day, same thoughts.
Yeah.
So I bring it up because, it's an epidemic in the veteran community. It's, it's something that we all deal with, especially if you deployed. You're going to have friends who are struggling with something. And when you say it's a combination of things, right, that's probably what, people don't recognize. They think, oh, he went to war, now he's all messed up, he or she, they don't want to be here anymore. But you had these three distinct issues.
I think everybody that has followed through with it or contemplated it, it was a combination of things. It's not like this one thing,
Right.
And then it's the transition on top of it,
Yeah.
and trying to digest everything and your path forward. I'm just, I'm thankful that there was no statistic yet.
Right.
It hadn't been released, because I think that had I seen that number 22 everywhere, and known that, hey, if I do this, there's 21 other guys that did this today, and I'm just joining a club, it might have been easier. I almost wish that statistic had never come out, or they had framed it differently.
Right.
Because then it became a marketing angle for so many organizations and companies and everybody to get behind that number, which I don't think anybody had bad intentions with it.
No.
At all. I mean, it's just
unintended consequences.
Right. Exactly.
And anybody that's dealt with veteran suicide, it happens in bunches.
Yeah.
It always does. You
Yep.
know there's another one coming when you see the first one. Anyway, let's lighten it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So you're, adaptive sports. Skiing was your first introduction to it.
Yep.
And talk about where it went from there.
Well, so you take everything that we just talked about and that dark time, and then you find yourself on top of a mountain. I think Snowmass is somewhere around like 12,000 feet.
Yeah.
And your vantage point feels like planet Earth. Like you can see everything.
Right.
Like you could almost see the curvature of the Earth from that height. And in that moment, obviously I'm looking at something magical that from a wheelchair and being on pavement, sea level usually, or somewhere close to,
Yeah.
you're not getting to see or feel that or breathe that crisp air, and I just felt alive right there. I also was scared about going down this mountain as a quadriplegic, thinking I'm literally going to break everything that I have left. And that could,
I get scared with just the regular skiing.
yeah. Well, that uncertainty and the fear, I think, was something that I really missed. I feel like that was something that I was never going to have again. And I was an adrenaline junkie. I loved it, So to feel that again, I felt alive. And then, I was hooked. I wanted to get involved in other things. I enrolled in school. I was jumping on airplanes. I was, I was signing up for the National Veteran Wheelchair Games. I couldn't get enough. And every time I would meet somebody that was paralyzed or an amputee or a brain injury, I had a million questions, And I was learning so much from these people that I was meeting that I would get excited and ask them if I'd see them again. Like, am I going to see you at another event? Like, what thing are you going to do? And you'd always get some hesitation, like, yeah, I'd love to, I don't know. And I was also going broke trying to do this because I didn't have any money. And it was just like, all right. So these things are really expensive, especially for me at the time. I had to bring somebody with me to help me with everything. So I had to buy 2 plane tickets. I had to get a hotel. I had to pay for probably their food for the week or whatever it was because I was relying on them for the week. I wasn't going to make them, go spend their money to help me accomplish something. So it was extremely expensive. And I think that, money was a huge barrier of entry for things that were, without a doubt, changing my life and changing everybody's lives that I was meeting. But then, I knew so many other people that never even had that opportunity. And, they went back to their hometowns and they hadn't met the same guy that I had met that got me to go skiing, or, there weren't any adaptive sporting organizations. And sometimes when the VA asks you to go do things like with the VA, you're just like, I don't know about that, and not to mention they're going to be from a different generation than me. So we probably don't have a whole lot in common.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, but I mean, if somebody your age asks you to do something, it's a lot different than somebody who's 30 years older than you asking you, to go do something.
True.
So that's just a reality of the situation. I mean, the people that were in the hospital when I was in the hospital were having a hard time relating with Vietnam veterans, even though we loved them and we loved their service and we loved their, just spending time with them. If somebody asked me to go skiing, I'd be like, I don't know. Maybe come back in a week. We'll see. So there is something about having people from your generation, your walk of life, do ask you to do something with you. So that was also a piece of what we needed to do with OscarMike.
So you start the OscarMike Apparel company. That's kind of like step one. Let's start selling T-shirts.
Kind of step one was going to the attorneys and asking them to file for a 501c3, and then them telling us that it could take up to 2 years. So we filed for it, but the same day we started an apparel company.
Oh, got it.
We needed to do something, so we weren't going to wait 2 years for it.
Okay.
And eventually it came, but.
And then, so now today, how's it work? Like, what, you have it's veterans only,
We've helped out a lot of other people that weren't veterans, but
Certainly.
The program and the purpose in the beginning is definitely to try to help that insanely large number of veterans that need to get involved in something like this right now.
Right. And so talk about somebody, it's interesting, before this we were talking about a recent IED attack in Afghanistan. And one of the victims of that, soldier, Marine?
Soldier.
He's down in Texas now, lost 3 limbs, right? What did you say about it?
Well, I mean, it happened in my backyard.
Right.
And I hadn't even, I felt very much like a civilian that, it'd been so long for me.
Right.
That it was kind of out of sight, out of mind. And then that's sad. It's sad to think that even somebody like me who had been in a war and in conflict and gone through 2 of them, and it's been such a huge part of my life for so long that, it could feel like that. Like it could feel like, no, we're not still at war, are we? That can't be real. Like it's been,
Right.
I was a baby when this started,
Right.
and now I feel like I'm an old man almost, and it's still going on.
Right. And so someone like that, injured, he's a multiple amputee right now.
Yeah, triple.
What do you have for him as like part of the program?
Yeah, I was saying that, but
what
when I
exists
heard it,
now?
the first thought in my head was, I think everybody around me when I said it out loud was like, you can't say that. But I was like, we need to get him in a rugby chair. Like he needs to be on our rugby team. And like he was just blown up. Like yeah, he needs to get on our rugby team like as fast as possible. And wasn't like a selfish thing. Like we need an extra player on the rugby team. We already have too many. It was the fact that is going to be the thing that changes his life. And if he doesn't get in a rugby chair, every day that goes by that he doesn't try something like that is a day that he's going to regret not being in it. But you don't want him to have to look back 7 years later and go, my God, I wasted so much time feeling the way I felt. I wish I would have gotten on the move, like on day one. Right. And so I think trying to get people from the point when they're in a hospital bed to getting active and involved with an organization like ours as fast as humanly possible is the way that you chop down that number. It's the way that you really impact somebody's life. You help them transition by not having them leave all their brothers and sisters behind. You give them just different brothers and sisters that have still chewed the same dirt, have been through the same things, and that we can, that can teach you all the things that you need to learn to be successful with your new injury. And it's not like you can go back in time. You're going to have to face reality eventually. And sometimes it takes somebody like, one of us to give you that dose of reality. And it's better to come from us because, you almost have to embrace the suck, you know what I mean? And you really,
with the concept.
You really do.
So you guys, OscarMike, and I want you to talk about it. You run a clinic. You call it a clinic.
Yep.
6 months out of the year.
Yep.
And every week, what is it that you offer?
We bring in veterans for a week to do a variety of adaptive sports. And not typical adaptive sports, not the stuff that the VA would probably offer or prescribe. The very first thing we do is
Well, how do you bring them in first day? What is it you do?
Pick you up at the airport in the afternoon or evening, take you grocery shopping, teach you how to pick food or the types of food that would be good for you, whether that means for nutrition or just for being able to make it. Somebody like me, lack of hand function. What could I do, like in the kitchen? What can I accomplish? How can I still eat all right and not just live off of potato chips, you know what I mean? Or Uber Eats or something, which didn't exist, when...
Which is weird because it's how my family survives.
I know. I mean, I'm almost thinking about forgetting the grocery program and telling everybody to download this cool new app. But anyway, like that's right away. And then the next morning, we take you to the local airport, which is about a mile down the road from our facility, and we teach you how to fly an airplane. And then we go off-roading and shooting and skydiving and, like the list just goes on and on of all these crazy cool things that we do for the week. And it ends with a modified triathlon for whatever whatever you can accomplish or whatever we want to, push you to accomplish. So if you can imagine the phase that I was in, that I was telling you about, and then going through a program like this, going from just sitting in your room not thinking that you'll ever feel any of those things that you miss to now doing all of those things in 1 week that most people don't ever even get to do, even if you're able-bodied,
Right.
And then I think, the point and the goal of that was to really just open people's eyes to what is still possible. And then you're probably going to go through with people that maybe are a little bit further along than you, maybe not, maybe they have something to teach you, but they're all, trying to figure out how to live life with some sort of injury or trauma. And then, and then the mentors and people that we have along with us, can just give them a lot of knowledge along the way about how to live after their injury.
Awesome. Aside from the clinic, what else do you do?
Obstacle course racing is a big part of our programming. It's like, the Spartan races, Tough Mudders, those kind of things. And then our wheelchair rugby team or team sports, like that are a new thing for us. We have the only all-veteran wheelchair rugby team in the country. We just won our first tournament last week. We placed 4th in the country last year at nationals in our division, and we're the only all-veteran team. So it's cool to get a bunch of veterans together who are all. You have to be impaired in at least 3 limbs to play the sport, and that's why I mentioned
Triple amputee.
the triple amputee. But
checking all the boxes.
right, yeah. So he qualifies, and. Yeah, I mean, it's just really fun and exciting stuff, a lot of camaraderie, and I can't imagine not having the family around me that I have, and that same goes for everybody else. I'm just one of them, you know what I mean? I just happen to be the guy that started it in the 2-car garage,
yeah.
But I'm the same as all of them, and I do it all with them. When I'm around them, I'm not the founder of OscarMike. I'm just, a member of the OscarMike militia, the rugby team. So I really can't imagine not having that unit around me. And I learned so much from them. I still learn so much from them every day. And I want everybody to have the same thing that I have,
Right.
that same experience, the same brotherhood.
I think it's probably missing for a lot of veterans, regardless of their status or what they're going through. Finding a group on the outside that resembles anything like what they had on the inside.
Right.
It's elusive, and even if you find it,
It's
might not live nearby.
impossible.
It's impossible.
It really is. But at the same time, I would like to get as close as we can.
Right.
And put you around people that understand you.
Noah, you truly are an inspiration, and thank you again so much for being here. What exactly was your first glimpse of hope? Like, you were going through this super, super dark time. How did you decide, I'm going to get out of bed today, and I'm maybe going to put the weapon under my bed tonight, and I'm going to do something about it?
It was a friend. It was the right person and the right voice too, and somebody that was able to talk to me, like another Marine sitting, across from me. And I think we all have those kinds of people that we need, or I hope that will come into our lives at some point when we need it, or a stern talking to, or something like that. But it was a friend, and that's, once again, when I talk about what I was just saying about the rugby team and the militia, these guys are all just my friends, and they push me hard, and I love it, and I try to reciprocate that for everybody else. So that was the glimpse of hope. It was somebody telling me that I could do something. They were in a similar situation. He was a Marine. He was a paraplegic at the time, and in the hierarchy of injuries, he's less injured than me, I guess, because he's paralyzed from the waist down. I'm paralyzed from the neck down, and so I thought that some of the things he could do weren't really realistic for me, but I found out that they were. I could do it. I just had to do it a little different than him. But that was it. It came from a friend.
That's awesome. And one follow-up, was he the person who you first went skiing with too? Did he drag you along?
Yeah, he was there. Yep.
So my question to you as a Marine as well too, what is your fondest memory of when you were in?
I don't know. Earlier when I was talking about how I can't see that version of me being me because it's been so long. The stories that I tell when somebody asks me to tell stories are all the good ones. That's the only thing that I pull from. So there are a lot of really good ones. The bad ones are unfortunate, but they get drowned out eventually. It took a very long time for that to be the reality. but it is now. And man, you ever heard of a thing called Highlander Night? It's a first LAR thing, but it's kind of a legend in the Marine Corps, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say it's a true legend. The reason I think that it's okay that I say it is I saw a photo of it on Facebook. And so now people know that it exists. Before it was just a rumor, but it really does exist. And every 2 years they do this thing called Highlander Night. Or, for all the guys that are in now, don't quote me on every 2 years. Depends on your deployment schedule. Depends on how cool your battalion commander is. But if we got time for a quick little story, it's just, we were out on a field app. I thought the whole unit thought we were in trouble, and it was the whole unit. It wasn't just my company. And they said that we were going to stay an extra day or two in the field. It was Friday. We were supposed to go home, clean our weapons, turn them into the armory, and go on limbo. But we didn't. We got in trouble. Somebody did, and they said that we were going to do gas mask training on the beach in the sand for the next 24 hours. So we were looking for somebody to destroy, for putting us through this. And we get down to the beach. The sun had just set, and we all lined up. We had our gas masks on our side, and they told us to grab a canteen cup, and we started marching down the sand. And then there's this big opening in the cliffs there, and they marched us right into the opening, and we're thinking, oh no, like nobody in the world can see us right now. I bet you they can't even see us from satellites from right here. This is gonna be bad. And as we're all lined up there, we heard bagpipes in the distance, and they were coming from way up on the cliffs. And then all of a sudden, this gigantic fire starts up in front of the cliffs, and then they pulled off these tarps off all these kegs lined up along the cliffs. And next thing you know, we proceeded to drinking beer, wrestling in the sand, playing tug of war, beating the crap out of each other. And
Marine fun.
Yeah, Marine fun. And then we woke up in the sand miserable the next morning and loaded back up on the vehicles. And I think everybody told their significant others and spouses that we got in a lot of trouble the night before and had to do gas mask training on the beach for that.
That's awesome. We don't do that in the Army.
We didn't do it in the Marine Corps, but that one time.
That one time. That's why it's fondest memory.
Yes, that one time.
So I heard the story about the T-shirt as a fundraising vehicle. I don't see every kid at Lollapalooza wearing your T-shirts. So how else are you raising money to support training the veterans?
So there's a lot of different ways that we raise money. Online fundraisers, we host an annual gala, we do grants, corporate matching, corporate partnerships is the biggest one right now. Aligning with a lot of companies that share the same kind of values and really like what we're doing. Google's been a great partner to us for several years now. And it seems like it just keeps getting better and better. But there's a lot of different ways, and you can find them all on the website, OscarMike.org.
And you can purchase T-shirts.
And the T-shirts, yeah. I mean,
And
the T-shirts
good stuff.
is a good way to also spread the mission. Because you can go online and you can make a donation, but if you also pick up a shirt or, get your family some or something and they're wearing it around, I mean, it's a cool brand. It's got
My wife says I wear it too much.
It's funny, my buddy just
said about all my T-shirts.
My buddy just got a bottle of wine as a going away present from a friend at work, and on it, and he doesn't work with me or anything. He's a helicopter mechanic, and on the bottle of wine, the guy wrote, like whatever you do next or something, just make sure that, or something along the lines of like, make sure that every shirt you wear does not have to be OscarMike.
Right.
And he's just like, yes, it does.
Well, they're good shirts.
Find me another.
They're nice.
Made shirt.
And then you said your first trademark was that?
One of our first. The first one was just the name and logo.
Right, but one of the
next
first
was Remember Everyone Deployed.
And this is a Friday thing for your company.
Yeah, we really do it on Fridays and push it on Fridays because remember, everyone deployed is RED, so we wear red on Fridays. And then we recently released the trademark because a lot of nonprofits started using it, and the USPTO Patent and Trademark Office wrote us and said, hey, you're not defending this, and you technically that's one of the things you have to do is defend.
Got it.
Or you have to license it. And we weren't doing either. We're just like, well, we want them to raise money. We were just trying to keep it out of some other evil company's hands, but we wanted.
We're not everybody's evil.
Yeah. But we wanted nonprofits and we wanted to serve its purpose,
Right.
And so when they showed us the list, the USPTO sent us a list of like 1,000 organizations and companies using it now. We're just like, awesome, victory, and we will release the trademark. We don't care.
Cool.
And thank you all for coming today and spending the afternoon with us. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.